Young and the Restless. Audra's desperate plea to Kane for a game-changing deal? Young and the Restless sees Audra Charles, Zuleika Silver, with no funding for her company Vibrante. It's not like the Newmans or the Abbotts are going to help her out. But there is a new mogul in town, Kane Ashby Billy Flynn, that she's already spoken to. So, I'm wondering if Audra is going to hit Kane up for some funding. Young and the Restless. Audra Charles faces financial crisis and new alliances. We're going to talk about how Audra may soon be pitching Kane to make a deal. She needs help to get her life back on track. It's all about to blow up very soon. It is just going to fall apart for her in so many ways. Claire Grace Newman and Audra. Explosive confrontation over Kyle Abbott and Victor Newman. Right now, we've got Claire Grace Newman, Haley Aaron, ready to go nuclear and blow up Audra's life. She is furious about Audra trying to split up her and Kyle Abbott, Michael Mueller, for a payday from Victor Newman, Eric Braden. Meanwhile, Audra is still looking for a way to break up Kyle and Claire. I kind of think Audra is hoping to make it happen. Then run back to Victor with her hand out for investment capital, so she can finally start Vibrante. She might say, "Oh, I know you said it was over, but look, here's what I did." What's crazy is Audra seems to think she can do all this and also keep Nate Hastings, Sean Dominic. That seems like a fool's game to me. YandR drama. Claire Grace exposes Audra Charles to Nate Hastings. Audra has pushed Claire over the edge. Now, Claire is determined to tell Nate everything that Audra has been up to. Claire's going to spill it all. How Audra made a deal with Victor to split up Claire and Kyle in exchange for money. I don't think Nate is going to doubt what Claire says. He's been suspicious of Audra's involvement with Victor from the very start. So, I bet it will all make perfect sense to Nate when Claire fills him in on everything. Things are going to go badly for Audra from there. Audra already knows that Claire plans to blab to Nate. While she was talking to herself, Audra declared war on Claire. However, I suspect Audra is going to lose the battle and the war. Claire put her own grandma on a vodka for. Imagine what she might do to Audra for messing with Kyle. Nate, Victor, and Victoria Newman. Audra's schemes unravel in Genoa City. I don't think Audra knows who she's messing with when she tries to mess up Claire's life. Audra and Nate definitely seem doomed to fail because of her lies. Of course, Audra's going to try to blame everything on Kyle. But after Nate hears everything Claire and Kyle have to say, I just don't see Nate believing anything Audra says. Since Victoria Newman, Amelia Heinley, just tore into Victor and told him to stop playing these games or he's going to lose Claire, he may confirm to Nate that Audra came to him begging for money. Victor may also admit that Audra jumped at the chance to seduce Kyle away from Claire. In the end, Victor cannot stand Audra. So he would rat her out in a heartbeat. I'm confident that, bottom line, Audra is going to lose absolutely everything. Nate, Vibrante, and any respect anyone in Genoa City had for her, except Sally Spectra, Courtney Hope. Young and the Restless. Sally Spectra stands alone. Audra versus the Genoa City elite. I do suspect that Sally will stand by her friend Audra. But other than Sally, everybody hates Audra. The Winters, the Abbotts, and the Newmans. Audra is a scrapper. I don't think she's going to give up on her dream of Vibrante. That's where I think Kane might come into this. Once Audra loses Nate, which we expect is going to happen, it would be kind of funny to see Audra try and suck up to Kane, both personally and professionally. That's kind of what Phyllis Summers, Michelle Stafford, has been doing. She's got it in her mind that Kane is her ticket to corporate superstardom and getting revenge on all her enemies. I also think Phyllis has an eye on Kane as a potential romantic interest. Kane Ashby, Phyllis Summers, and Audra Charles. Complicated connections on YandR. We all know Audra has a history of chasing rich men. That's pretty much all she pursues. She was with Tucker McCall, Trevor St. John. Nate's got lots of family money, and he was a surgeon. She was also with Kyle, whose legacy is family money. The only guy she's been with that wasn't super rich was Holden Novak, Nathan Owens. Audra didn't stick around for too long with him. Plus, Audra already approached Kane in France. That was about the perfume war with Kyle, and Kane did seem interested. Of course, if she comes at him after all this, it would be Audra solo and without Kyle. Can Audra Charles win over Kane Ashby for Vibrante's future? If she's pitching herself to Kane, I'm sure Audra could impress him with her business skills and some other skills that Victor was using her for. If Audra started trying to cozy up to Kane, it would drive Phyllis absolutely crazy because she's been flirting with Kane since day one. Audra is hot. She's a few years younger than Phyllis. She's also somebody that Phyllis hates. Since Audra was the one that Kyle ran to literally 5 minutes after breaking up with Phyllis's daughter Summer Newman, Allison Lanier. We know Phyllis has despised Audra for quite some time now on Young and the Restless. Kyle Abbott, Phyllis Summers, and the turbulent women of Genoa City. Phyllis would be super annoyed if Kane brought Audra into the alliance he's forming. Then again, Phyllis didn't want Billy Abbott, Jason Thompson, as part of the partnership, yet there he is. Speaking of Billy, I wonder how he'd feel about Audra coming on board. He may not like the fact she was targeting his nephew Kyle. But other than that, Billy may not care that much. In fact, there's a chance he might be slightly more open to it because Audra is BFFs with his girlfriend Sally. Then again, maybe not. YandR spoilers, Billy Abbott, Audra Charles and the new power players. In a brand new interview with Soap Digest, actor Jason Thompson said Billy is going to quickly realize he cannot trust Kane or anybody working with Kane. Right now, that includes Phyllis, includes Holden, and might also include Audra. If Audra approaches Kane and he takes the deal, they're both town pariahs. Audra is gorgeous with a banging body. Lily Winters, Crystal Khalil, shows up to talk to Kane this week and makes it very clear. We are never reuniting. It's crystal clear. I think Kane's starting to get the picture. He's promised her he won't pursue her. Lily Winters puts Kane Ashby in his place on YandR. So, I could see him investing with Audra or putting her to work for him. Maybe dating her to rub it in Lily's face that he's with Nate's hot ex. Once Kane finds out Victor did Audra dirty, that might actually convince Kane even more to work with Audra. Kane may figure out quickly that Audra's the kind of woman who can be as ruthless as he is. She also has the same enemies he does. I kind of see a potential for Kane and Audra to be a match made in hell who could terrorize the whole town. Young and the Restless. Will Audra Charles and Kane Ashby team up against Genoa City? It's not too long before Audra's dirty deals blow up in her face and Nate ditches her. Vibrante's already dead in the water. The only job prospect she has right now is with Sally. But Billy might tell his gal pals she can't hire Audra because she's of Newman Enterprises had been a constant backdrop to Genoa City's latest storm. But in the quiet corner office of Chancellor Winters, tensions were mounting like a slow-burning fuse. Audra, with her impeccably tailored blazer and a look that teetered between desperation and determination, paced the length of Kane's office. Every few steps, her heels clicked against the polished floor, a sound that seemed unnervingly loud in the tense silence. Kane was seated behind his massive oak desk, leaning back slightly, his fingers interlaced, eyes fixed on Audra. There was a calmness about him, a measured patience that contrasted starkly with Audra's restless energy. She stopped mid-step, planting her hands on the edge of his desk, and leaned in. "Kane," she said, her voice firm but laced with vulnerability. "We need to talk. And I mean really talk." Kane raised an eyebrow, the corner of his lips curling into the faintest hint of a smirk. "Audra, you don't often come here without a reason. What's going on?" Audra exhaled sharply. "It's about the Thompson deal." Kane's expression didn't change, but there was a flicker of interest in his eyes. The Thompson account was a high-profile acquisition, a potential windfall for Chancellor Winters if handled correctly, but also a minefield of corporate politics and rivalries. "I know it's risky," Audra continued, her voice dropping to a lower, more urgent tone. "And I know you've been handling things meticulously, but I think we're about to miss an opportunity that could change everything for the company. And for us." Kane leaned forward now, resting his elbows on the desk. "Go on." Audra's hands tightened slightly against the desk. "I've been running numbers, projections, speaking with contacts, and I've found a way we can secure the Thompson account. But it's not going to be easy. I need you to consider a deal, something outside the usual parameters. A game changer, if you will." Kane's eyes narrowed slightly. "A game changer? That's a bold ask, Audra. And bold comes with risk. You do understand that." "I do," she said quickly. "More than you know. But think about it, Kane. This isn't just about the deal. It's about setting Chancellor Winters on a trajectory where we aren't constantly reacting to Newman or Abbott. We get to be the ones making the plays, dictating terms, changing the rules." There was a pause as Kane considered her words, weighing them carefully. He had always admired Audra's strategic mind, but this sense of urgency was new. Something told him that her instincts were more than just professional calculations. They were personal. "You're not just asking me to approve a deal," Kane said slowly. "You're asking me to take a leap of faith. One that could either put us ahead or have Newman biting at our heels before the ink is dry." Audra's gaze softened, just for a moment. "I know, Kane, and I wouldn't ask if I didn't believe in it. But I need you to trust me on this. I can make it work, but only if we act fast. Kane leaned back, steepling his fingers. He could see the sincerity in her eyes. He could feel the tension coiled in her posture. Audra wasn't one to come in with empty promises or half-baked plans. When she asked for something, it meant she had calculated the risk, weighed the outcomes, and was ready to fight for it. What exactly are you proposing? Kane asked finally, his voice calm but commanding. Audra reached into her bag and pulled out a sleek tablet, tapping it to life. I've outlined a multi-tiered approach. Phase 1 is negotiation leverage, creative incentives, targeted exclusivity clauses, and a partnership proposal that Newman Enterprises won't see coming. Phase 2 involves aligning key decision-makers within Thomson with our vision, giving us an edge over competitors. And Phase 3, she paused, her eyes locking onto Kane's, Phase 3 is where it becomes a game changer. We leverage an unexpected asset, one that Newman wouldn't anticipate. It gives us immediate influence and long-term leverage. Kane's eyes flicked over the tablet as he scrolled through the projections, his brow furrowing slightly. He could see the brilliance in the strategy, but he could also see the risk. The stakes were high, and one misstep could undo everything. This is audacious, Kane said finally, leaning back and tapping his chin. And yet I have to admit, it's brilliant. But there's one thing you're not telling me. Audra's stomach tightened. She had anticipated this. What's that? You're personally invested, Kane said bluntly. This isn't just about the company, is it? There's something in this deal that matters to you on a personal level. You don't usually mix personal stakes with corporate strategy unless the risk is worth it. Audra looked down, a flicker of hesitation crossing her face before she straightened, meeting his gaze again. You're right. This is personal. But that doesn't make the strategy any less sound. It just means I'll fight harder to see it through. Kane studied her for a long moment, the room heavy with unspoken tension. He had always respected Audra's intuition and drive, but this was a gamble. One wrong move, and not only could Chancellor Winters lose the Thomson account, but Audra herself could pay a steep personal price. Finally, he nodded slowly. All right, Audra. I'll bite. We do it your way. But one condition, you keep me fully in the loop. Every step, every contact, every potential risk. No surprises. A rush of relief washed over Audra, though she quickly masked it with a professional nod. Agreed. No surprises. Kane leaned back in his chair, studying her. You know, if this works, it could change everything for us. For you. For the company. Audra allowed herself a small smile, the tension in her shoulders easing just slightly. That's the plan, Kane. And if we succeed, we won't just be ahead of Newman and Abbott. We'll redefine the game. Kane smirked, a glimmer of admiration in his eyes. I like the sound of that. Let's see if your plan is as bulletproof as you think. Audra straightened, feeling a surge of determination. With Kane's reluctant approval, she knew the stakes had just gone higher, and so had the potential payoff. The Thomson deal could catapult Chancellor Winters to new heights, and if she played her cards right, it could also secure her personal stake in Genoa City's power landscape. As she left Kane's office, her mind raced with the steps ahead. Every move had to be precise, every contact managed, and every risk mitigated. But she also felt a spark of hope, a feeling she hadn't experienced in months. For the first time in a long while, Audra believed that she could not only survive the corporate battlefield of Genoa City, but thrive in it, and maybe, just maybe, come out on top. And somewhere in the back of her mind, a whisper of anticipation stirred. The game had changed, and she was ready. Genoa City, where fortunes can vanish as quickly as they are made, Audra Charles had always been a figure of poise and power. A shrewd businesswoman with an eye for opportunity, she had built her reputation on savvy investments and calculated risks. But even the strongest empires can tremble under the weight of unexpected storms, and Audra was about to face the most perilous financial crisis of her career. It all began with a series of troubling phone calls one crisp Monday morning. Audra sat at her sleek mahogany desk in her high-rise office, a cup of untouched coffee growing cold beside her. Her eyes scanned the latest reports from her financial advisors, the numbers jumping off the pages in alarming ways. A major investment in a luxury real estate project had gone awry, leaving her millions in limbo. Simultaneously, a long-standing partnership she had relied on for decades had collapsed after a shocking embezzlement scandal. I can't believe this, Audra muttered, gripping the edge of her desk as the reality set in. Her empire, carefully constructed over years of meticulous work, was beginning to crumble. As word of Audra's financial vulnerability spread through Genoa City's tightly knit business circles, allies became scarce and predators began circling. Victor Newman, ever the opportunist, was quick to sense a weakness. Though he had always publicly respected Audra's acumen, he now smelled an opening. Calls and invitations to discuss mutually beneficial opportunities flooded her inbox, each one carrying an unmistakable undertone. Get on board with me, or watch your empire collapse. Audra, however, was not one to be easily intimidated. With determination in her eyes, she refused to let her life's work crumble without a fight. But she knew she couldn't navigate this storm alone. She needed allies, preferably ones whose loyalty couldn't be swayed by greed. Enter Nate Hastings, whose own rise in Genoa City's business world had been a story of perseverance and cunning. Audra reached out to him, proposing a partnership that would stabilize her portfolio while protecting her assets from prying eyes. Nate, impressed by Audra's resilience and integrity, agreed. But he cautioned her that the game she was stepping into was more dangerous than she realized. Meanwhile, Audra's social life, long carefully curated to protect her professional image, began to blur with the pressures of her financial turmoil. Kane Ashby, a trusted friend with an unshakable moral compass, became her confidant. Late-night strategy sessions at Kane's loft revealed the human side of her struggle. The sleepless nights, the gnawing anxiety, and the fear of losing not just money, but her legacy. Kane reminded her of her strengths, encouraging her to leverage her intelligence and connections rather than succumb to panic. But Genoa City never waits for anyone to catch their breath. As Audra navigated negotiations with Nate and strategized with Kane, a new player emerged. A mysterious entrepreneur named Jordan Keller, whose reputation for turning struggling companies around was legendary, but whose methods were notoriously ruthless. Audra faced a moral dilemma: align with Jordan to secure her financial future, or risk staying true to her values while potentially losing everything. Audra's first encounter with Jordan was a calculated dance of words and subtle power plays. In a dimly lit private dining room, the two exchanged pleasantries that barely masked the tension beneath. Jordan, charismatic and unflinchingly confident, proposed an aggressive merger that could rescue Audra's business, but at the cost of ceding significant control. I admire your vision, Audra, Jordan said smoothly, leaning back in his chair. But in business, sometimes survival requires compromise. Are you willing to do whatever it takes? Audra's jaw tightened. She knew that Jordan's offer could stabilize her empire immediately, but the price might be too steep. Yet as she walked home that night, she realized that the world she operated in left little room for sentimentality. Every day was a battle, and every alliance carried its own risks. In the days that followed, Audra made a series of bold moves. She tightened her operations, renegotiated contracts, and discreetly secured short-term financing to cover immediate losses. With Nate's analytical skills and Kane's unwavering support, she began to reclaim control over her business. But even as she took decisive action, she knew the biggest challenge lay ahead: navigating the treacherous waters of alliances without losing herself. Tensions reached a peak when Victor Newman, seeing Audra's alliance with Nate as a threat, tried to undermine her at a crucial board meeting. He publicly questioned her leadership, suggesting that her recent financial missteps indicated poor judgment. The room buzzed with whispers and speculative glances, but Audra's response was measured, calculated, and brilliant. I appreciate your concern, Victor, Audra began, her voice calm but firm. But leadership isn't about avoiding mistakes. It's about making smart decisions when the stakes are highest. My team and I have a plan in place that will not only protect this company but strengthen it for the future. Her poise silenced the room. Victor, momentarily caught off guard, realized that Audra's resilience had earned her more respect than his attacks could diminish. As weeks passed, Audra began to see the fruits of her labor. With the right partnerships, careful planning, and an unyielding determination, she was turning her crisis into a story of triumph. Nate's strategic thinking helped her secure lucrative deals, Kane's loyalty provided emotional support, and even Jordan, begrudgingly impressed by her fortitude, respected her refusal to sacrifice her principles. Yet the crisis had changed Audra. She emerged sharper, more cautious, and more aware of the fragility of even the most secure empire. Genoa City's glittering veneer remained enticing, but she had learned that beneath the surface lay both danger and opportunity. The final scene unfolded at a gala hosted by Audra to celebrate her company's renewed stability. Surrounded by allies, friends, and competitors alike, she reflected on the journey she had undertaken. Each handshake, Each toast and each congratulatory word served as a reminder that success was never solitary. It was the sum of alliances carefully chosen, risks bravely taken, and the courage to stand firm when the world seemed determined to topple you. As Audra raised her glass, her eyes briefly met Nate's across the room, and a knowing smile passed between them. Kane, ever loyal, gave her a subtle nod of approval. Even Jordan, who lingered at the edge of the crowd, seemed to respect the indomitable spirit that had carried her through a near-catastrophic financial storm. In Genoa City, fortunes rise and fall, and loyalties are tested with every twist of fate. But Audra Charles had proven that even in the midst of crisis, intelligence, courage, and carefully chosen alliances could not only save an empire, but elevate it. And as the night unfolded, Audra knew this was only the beginning. New challenges would come, new threats would emerge, and new alliances would form. But she was ready. More than ready. The tension in Genoa City had reached a boiling point, and the halls of Newman Enterprises felt smaller than ever. Claire Grace Newman, with her head held high and eyes blazing with fury, stormed into the Abbott family penthouse. Her long, flowing hair caught in the sunlight streaming through the towering windows, a silent testament to her elegance and fire. But today elegance was overshadowed by rage. Audra, ever the composed and calculating presence in the Abbott family's orbit, sat on the leather couch with a glass of Chardonnay in hand, as though she had been expecting Claire. Her eyes, sharp as daggers, followed every step the young Newman heir took. "Audra!" Claire snapped, her voice echoing off the walls. "We need to talk. Now!" Audra didn't even flinch. She took a slow sip of her drink, letting the tension hang thick in the air before replying. "Claire, darling, I was beginning to wonder if you'd ever muster the courage to face me. To what do I owe the pleasure?" Her tone was syrupy sweet, but the smirk that danced across her lips told a different story. Claire's hands clenched into fists at her sides. "Cut the games, Audra. This isn't about pleasantries. It's about Kyle. And it's about your father, Victor Newman." Audra raised an eyebrow, feigning surprise. "Kyle? My dear, I hardly think this is a conversation I need to have. Isn't Kyle capable of making his own decisions?" "Capable?" Claire's voice cracked with exasperation. "Audra, you know exactly what's going on. Kyle's being manipulated again. Victor is pulling strings behind every door in Genoa City, and you're complicit." Audra's smirk faltered, but only slightly. "Complicit? Claire, I assure you, I'm nothing more than a concerned friend. Victor Newman is a formidable man, yes, but that doesn't mean I do his bidding." Claire laughed bitterly, a sound that was more of a challenge than amusement. "A concerned friend? Audra, don't insult my intelligence. I've watched how you encourage him, how you whisper in Kyle's ear. Every word you speak seems calculated to keep him under your thumb, or your father's." Audra set her glass down with deliberate care, the clink loud enough to punctuate her next words. "Careful, Claire. You tread dangerously close to accusing me of things I haven't done. Kyle is not a pawn to me. But he is a pawn," Claire snapped, her voice cracking with desperation. "And I won't stand by and watch it happen. Kyle is my friend, and he's being torn apart by your machinations. Don't think I haven't noticed how you've been cozying up to Victor, feeding him information about my family, my life, everything. You're trying to control him. Control us." Audra leaned back, crossing her legs and letting out a low, melodious chuckle. "Control, Claire? How quaint. You think you understand the power dynamics in this city. You think you can protect Kyle from the realities of our world. Sweetheart, this isn't a playground. This is business. And in business, loyalty, strategy, and influence matter more than sentimentality." Claire's jaw tightened, but she refused to be intimidated. "I get it, Audra. I get the games, I get the strategies. But there's a line. And right now you've crossed it. Victor's obsession with undermining my family, with manipulating Kyle. It's dangerous. And I won't let it continue without a fight." Audra tilted her head, studying Claire like one would a fragile piece of glass, beautiful, but dangerously close to shattering. "A fight? Darling, you really think you can stand against the Newman Empire? Against Victor Newman himself? Do you realize the risks you're taking?" "I realize everything," Claire said, her eyes burning with defiance. "I realize that Victor manipulates, schemes, and intimidates. I realize that Audra Abbott knows exactly how to push people to their limits. But I also realize this. Kyle deserves to make his own choices without being pressured by you or your father. And I will do whatever it takes to protect him." For a moment, the room was silent. The air thickened with unspoken words and old resentments. Audra's gaze softened slightly, almost imperceptibly, but the steel behind it remained. "Claire, she said, her voice lower now, more serious. You think you're protecting Kyle. But you're naive if you believe this is just about him. This is about power. This is about legacy. And if you think you can step into the ring with the Abbotts and the Newmans without getting hurt, you're sorely mistaken. I don't care about the risks, Claire said firmly, stepping closer, her presence a direct challenge. Kyle's life isn't just a chess piece for you or your father. He's a person. And I will expose whatever schemes you're hiding, whatever manipulations you've orchestrated, even if it means going against both of you. Audra's expression darkened, her playful veneer finally slipping. Bold words, Claire. Very bold. But boldness alone won't protect you. Do you think Victor hasn't seen your moves? Do you think he hasn't anticipated your interference? You're in dangerous territory, and I can promise you, once Victor decides to act, nothing will stop him. Claire's eyes flashed. Then let him come. I won't back down. Kyle deserves better than to be a pawn in his twisted games. And if standing up to both of you puts me in the crosshairs, so be it. Audra rose from the couch, her height and poise commanding the room. You've got spirit, Claire. I'll give you that. But remember this, Genoa City chews up dreamers and idealists like you and spits them out. Be very careful, or you'll end up right where Victor wants you. Claire squared her shoulders, meeting Audra's challenge head-on. Maybe. But if I'm going down fighting. And I'll make sure Kyle knows the truth before anyone else can twist it. The tension between the two women crackled like a live wire, the room almost vibrating with unspoken threats and defiance. Neither of them was willing to blink first, neither ready to yield. The standoff was complete. Claire, the fiery protector of her friend and her family's honor, and Audra, the calculating Abbott with her own agendas and loyalty to a father whose shadow loomed over everyone. Outside the penthouse windows, the sun dipped low, casting long shadows across Genoa City. It was a city of secrets, power plays, and ruthless ambition. And both Claire and Audra were deeply entrenched in its dangerous web. One misstep could unravel everything. And as the two women locked eyes, it was clear. This confrontation was far from over. In fact, it was only the beginning. Because in a city where loyalty is fleeting and betrayal is always lurking, the battle for Kyle's future, and for control over the very soul of Genoa City, was just getting started.